Welcome to another Mariculture Minute, a podcast about salmon, seaweed, and shellfish in Alaska. I'm Jeremiah Murphy, here in Sitka, where it just snowed and they're shoveling outside, so you might hear some scrapes, and tap-taps.
Yeah, so the regulatory limit is in micrograms per 100 gram, and that's what we report our values in.
Okay.
So it's a very, very low amount of toxin. It's actually one of the, it was trying to be synthesized for, bioweaponry. It's
What? The CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, the company, spy stuff, secret codes, gadgets, working in the shadows. I'm just trying to get you in that cloak and dagger mood. In 1975, the CIA got into trouble with Congress for holding on to a fast-acting poison that President Richard Nixon kindly asked them to get rid of. There's congressional documents and news articles that say this poison was used in a suicide device, a coin with a little jabby thing to poke you dead, in case a U-2 spy plane pilot was captured by the enemy. The CIA was interested in this poison because of how little of it is needed to kill someone. This poison is paralytic shellfish toxin, specifically saxitoxin, and that's what we've been talking about in our last two episodes. How important it is to test Alaskan shellfish before you eat them, so you don't end up dead like some captured spy.
No, there's no taste, no smell, no visual. Even in the water, when the blooms happen, there doesn't need to be a super high cell density to cause toxicity. So the regulatory limit is 80 micrograms, which a microgram is very, very small. It's 10 to the minus 6 of a gram per 100 grams serving. I love shellfish, so I eat more than 100 grams.
That's Shannon Cellan, the environmental lab manager with the Sitka Tribe of Alaska. To catch you up, shellfish, like oysters, clams, mussels, can collect these naturally occurring toxins that can kill people. They make you feel tingly, and then you can stop breathing.
It's so upsetting. We shouldn't have any deaths because it's preventable.
Right.
But 5 for how big the state is and how many people are eating shellfish really shows that there is shellfish that is consumable, but we need to do it in a safe way. And if we don't have access to testing, we're not able to do it in a safe way.
Shannon tests locally harvested shellfish, clams, and mussels to make sure they're safe. Last episode, we talked about the receptor binding assay. This is the test that Shannon used. It involves shellfish, samples, pig brains, and some radioactive musical chairs.
And then the gold standard method, because it was the first method produced, is the mouse bioassay.
Okay.
So you take that same slurry of shellfish that you made, and then you extract the liquid, but instead of putting it on this plate, you inject it into the space between the stomach and the skin of a mouse and time how long it takes to die, which is very sad, but also important work. And when that was the only method to keep people safe, that worked.
But now, Shannon's talking about the mouse bioassay, which is how Alaska tests commercial shellfish. That's anything coming from a shellfish farm in Alaska, like oysters.
And when that was the only method to keep people safe, that worked. But now we have new technology and people are starting to try and get away from that. And it's very expensive and it's hard to get mice shipped and they have to be a certain weight. So for Western Alaskan regions, or really anywhere in Alaska, it's a very, very challenging method to introduce, even though the technicality of it might not be so challenging.
As Shannon said, this test involves injecting mice with shellfish samples and seeing if they die. If the mouse passes away, the shellfish is bad.
Because, we've never run the mouse bioassay at our lab, but I have gotten to work with the folks from Washington, and apparently they need to be within 5 grams of a certain weight, and then you need to be feeding them and keeping them alive, and there's there's animal maintenance on top of then everything else.
So the mouse bioassay accurately tells us if the shellfish is safe. Deaths in Alaska from paralytic shellfish toxin have been really low because of this test. I think it's around 10 in the last 20 years. Thank you, mice. But even if testing on mice, those cute little fuzzy things, doesn't make you a little squeamish, consider the economics Shannon just laid out. The mice have to be taken care of. You have to make sure that if they die, it's from this test, from the toxin, not from some other health concern. And also, Alaska might have some problems keeping this supply of mice. I did some research on the mouse bioassay and found a document on the Alaska Legislature website, akleg.gov. Full link in the show notes at kelpshow.com. Anyway, the document is titled, get ready for this, 2025 Legislature Operating Budget Transaction Compare Enacted Structure Between Senate and 26 Enacted. I have no idea what that title means, but check this note under Environmental Health. GA: Increased cost for shellfish testing supplies. The Environmental Health Laboratory, EHL, is the sole approved laboratory in Alaska authorized to perform regulatory testing for commercial shellfish, ensuring compliance with the National Shellfish Sanitation Program, NSSP, standards. The only NSSP-approved method for detecting paralytic shellfish toxin, PST, and all commercial Alaskan shellfish species is the mouse bioassay. The previous supplier for laboratory mice ceased operations suddenly, and the only alternative supplier is a substantially higher cost. Without the EHL's ability to continue mouse bioassay PST testing, there is a significant risk to the Alaska shellfish industry's ability to distribute products. Now, again, I'm not an expert on the Alaska state budget and the legislature, but this looks like the department that does the shellfish testing is making a case for a budget increase to maintain the supply of mice to make sure Alaska's oysters are safe to eat. And it also sounds like mouse suppliers might be unpredictable too. If anyone has anything to add to this or could clarify, feel free to drop me a line. I'd love to talk to you. I can be contacted at kelpshow.com. And I found another document on the State of Alaska's website. I'll provide the full link in the show notes. Here we go. The document is titled State of Alaska FY Financial Year 2025 Governor's Operating Budget, released December 14th, 2023. Department of Environmental Conservation, Environmental Health, RDU/Component Budget Summary. The EHL has achieved conformance, certification, and has approval to use the high-pressure liquid chromatography-post column oxidation method for testing for paralytic shellfish toxins, PST, in oysters and mussels per the FDA and meeting the National Shellfish Sanitation Program requirements. This will be a backup method for regulatory testing of oysters and mussels if there is a disruption to the supplies needed for the mouse bioassay. So, one more time, I'm not an expert. I found this document just doing some web research, but it sounds like the state of Alaska has a backup method for testing shellfish. This high-pressure liquid chromatography-post column oxidation. Wow. The method the Sitka Tribe of Alaska uses, what we've been talking about in our previous 2 episodes, is the receptor binding assay, which uses pig brains. I was curious if this was ever used to replace the mouse bioassay, the mouse test where they kill the mouse. I was curious if there was just some sort of ethical trade-off for killing mice or killing the pig. What I mean is the pig killed for the test, Or are the brains maybe a slaughterhouse byproduct? Is the pig killed maybe for food and the brain is just a side hustle? I asked Shannon.
I am not sure. Okay. I have heard from other people in the science field that often other parts are repurposed. Okay. It's not just thanks for the brain.
Because they use pigs a lot for medical research.
Yes.
Okay.
But I have not necessarily found that, and the website doesn't give me more info. But maybe I should be a good investigator and call them. And what are you doing with your pigs?
I'll get on that.
Millipore sigma.
Okay, I'll check them out.
Porcine membrane homogenate.
Okay. I don't know if I can spell that. I contacted Millipore Sigma through their customer service chat window. They weren't able to tell me where exactly the pig brain came from, other than the specific lot the rep looked at came from the United States. And the rep assured me that could vary based on the lot. So I did what I usually do when I need answers. I posted the question on Reddit in the LabRat subreddit. And Redditor Real Nitrogen replied, "As someone who works with porcine products, I can almost guarantee that this product is made from slaughterhouse byproducts. It would be extremely rare for pigs to be raised for anything other than meat as the main product." So, we don't know for sure the source of the pig brain in the tests we've been talking about. But more than likely, it sounds like a slaughterhouse is trying to make use of all the pig's parts, which sounds like making use of an animal that's already being used for food. But I wonder if we'll ever move beyond a lab test. Will there ever be a way for someone harvesting clams or someone farming mussels to test shellfish on their own? Maybe with some kind of portable kit like a litmus strip or something like that. Here's Shannon again. Use on like a boat for like harvesters, farmers?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know if we're close to any kind of testing method, like a test strip?
That's something I know folks have been working on for some time. I don't think we're close enough yet. So there's two branches to this. Is what are we looking at for commercial and what are we looking at for public health? Right. And they go hand in hand, but I think we're close enough we're getting closer for harvesters that maybe they're not wasting their time going out harvesting and then all their shellfish are above the regulatory limit. Like, tests like that could be helpful because they might not catch all of the toxins, but they could be like, oh, this is over the regulatory limit for whatever we can find. Why would we keep harvesting here? Because we know it will definitely be over. Right. And then if it's under, it still might be over, but
I got you.
I think for public health, I don't know that we're quite there yet, but there is a lot of interest. The other thing is where's the money come from, which is like a huge issue with these scientific propulsions, right? So for the commercial industry, it's like, oh, it would be great for them to not have to pay the DEC however much money to get their shellfish tested every time. But for Joe Schmo, who's living on the beach and just doesn't want to get sick, which is a very smart move, the kit might not be worth the cost of the kit that Joe Schmo would be willing to pay might not be worth the research, development, and production. Right, so that can often be like a stop in a lot of effort on these things sometimes. But I know people have been working on them. Cool. So we'll see what happens. Yeah.
When Shannon says folks have been working for some time on an easy portable test for paralytic shellfish toxin, some time is pretty accurate. Check this out from a mussel farm proposal in 1984, talking about paralytic shellfish poison, referred to as PSP, and state testing from the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation, or ADEC. Since each shipment of mussels for commercial sale must be tested for PSP, the ADEC is trying to obtain some new equipment that would give instant test results. That was 1984. But to be fair, in 1984, before Amazon Prime and texting, we were still waiting for a lot of things to give instant results. But perhaps that 1984 mussel farm proposal was referencing this 1983 report I found, Development and Field Testing of EIA Kits for Paralytic Shellfish Poison. This report admits that portable test kits aren't ready, but concludes, "We anticipate that we will be able to make significant progress on these tasks over the next few months in preparation for the 1984 shellfish field season in Alaska." Maybe these scientists were so optimistic to anticipate progress because in 1978, two scientists, Richard Neve and Paul Reichard, reported to the Alaska State Legislature on the development of tests to replace the mouse bioassay. And they write about two types of potential methods to screen for paralytic shellfish toxin: the colorimetric method and the fluorometric method. They write, "The fluorometric method, if successful, might be more suitable to use aboard a harvest boat." That was 1978, 48 years ago. They were talking about some kind of portable test. And at that time, Richard and Paul, just like Shannon has mentioned, Richard and Paul write, "The mouse bioassay is time-consuming and requires a supply of live mice in a narrow weight range." Wow, 1978. This search for a mouse bioassay alternative has been going on for 48 years. That's a long... Whoops! Scratch that. Check out this report. Public Health Significance of Paralytic Shellfish Poison, a review of literature and unpublished research. If you've been listening to previous episodes, you might remember when this report came out. That's right, 1956. And on page 37, the report describes a test using an aqueous solution containing chemicals that turn blue in the presence of shellfish poison. And the writers say this method offers some promise of being useful as a field test. However, it's a little hard to read because the paragraph is crossed out in blue pen, as is the source article in the bibliography. But when I zoom in on it, I can see the source of the article is unpublished data from one of the report's authors, Mary Schaefer. Why was Mary Schaefer's potentially paradigm-changing work crossed out? Perhaps that's a topic for a future episode. But I'm just quoting these old reports to illustrate that researchers have been researching alternatives for the mouse bioassay and paralytic shellfish toxin field tests for quite some time. 1956, that's 70 years ago. Older than Pizza Hut, Barbie dolls, and Spider-Man. Ancient times. There's also been more current research too. I don't want to dismiss anybody who's been working on it, but I will link to some current articles in the show notes. But let me say this. While Alaska, for commercial shellfish, still uses the mouse bioassay, and it does keep people safe. From the documents I've found, the supply of lab mice is unpredictable, and the state has approved an alternative, the high-pressure liquid I can't say it. The high-pressure liquid chromatography-post column oxidation method. Mariculture Minute will keep following this story. I'll provide links to all this information, the articles and reports, all this stuff that I referenced at kelpshow.com, so you can find it there. So, in these last 3 episodes, we've learned a lot. Shellfish can be deadly. If you ever eat shellfish and feel a tingling around your lips and mouth, go to the hospital. They can help you. Paralytic shellfish toxins are so deadly, they can be weaponized and used in spy stuff. Testing protects us from paralytic shellfish toxin. The Sitka Tribe of Alaska provides testing for community members. The state of Alaska uses the mouse bioassay on commercial shellfish, so that stuff's safe to eat. but there might be more practical testing methods for the state to use in the future. Science has been working on alternatives to the mouse bioassay and working on field tests for a long time. So who knows what the future holds? Hopefully some more funding for this important science. That's a lot. Thank you so much for joining me on this conversation with Shannon Cellan, the Environmental Lab Manager at the Sitka Tribe of Alaska, and all the tangents it's led me on. Reddit threads, legislative documents, old typewritten reports I found at the library. Wow, what a ride. So let's stay safe, and if you harvest shellfish on your own, test those mussels and clams. But I want to give Shannon the last word. It's been so great to talk to her on how the Sitka Tribe of Alaska tests shellfish harvested by the local public. I asked Shannon what advice she would give to anyone wanting to start a shellfish farm here in Alaska.
Work with your community.
Okay.
Work with your community. The people in Alaska that I have met are just so knowledgeable, and having them on your side is really valuable, and they're going to know where historically the shellfish have been growing the best anyway, and how the ocean behaves in seasons longer than maybe a transplant farmer would know. They'll have stories of how the ocean's behaving for generations, and it's just so important and so valuable to have the community engaged in these kinds of things, which is the unscientific answer. The scientific answer would be know that there's a lot of stuff in the water, and that's okay, but just really think about the different things that could be impacting your shellfish. Even flavor, that's the exciting thing, right? Like, how do you get the best flavor you want? Is that a really saline spot where you're putting your oyster farm, or is it a little bit more freshwater input that's going to affect the flavor and taste? So I think that a lot of that stuff could kind of play into the fun part of trying to choose a site.
Cool. Solid advice from a scientist.
A scientist who doesn't grow shellfish.
But works with them.
Yes.
Thanks so much again to Shannon Cellan for taking time away from the lab to talk to Mariculture Minute. And more thanks to Sitka Tribe of Alaska, the Sitka Public Library for helping me out with all those reports, Alaska Sea Grant, University of Alaska Southeast Sitka Campus, Professor Angela Bowers, Aldo Griffo-Hahn, Sarah Ebersol, Brenna Hawkinson, and Walden Murphy for providing the music. I'm Jeremiah Murphy here in Sitka, Alaska. You can find a Mariculture Minute on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram at Kelp Show. You can read show notes, and this one will be a doozy of them. Leave comments, ask questions, and contact me at kelpshow.com. Happy 2026!